Hello, welcome to Tea Time, New Jersey Tea Party Coalition's weekly public affairs program. I'm Laura Walsh. Today we'll be chatting with Andy Sullivan, who is with us today to talk about the Ground Zero Mosque. And Andy's been quite involved from the very beginning. Hello, Andy.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. We're so glad you're here. Andy, if you could tell us a little bit about your background and where you were on September 11th of '01.
Sure. I'm in New York City, Union Construction.
Okay.
And on the morning of 9/11, I remember coming over to Pulaski Skyway because I used to live in Jersey. And I remember seeing that great skyline that we all miss. But that morning, there was something different. And it was the guy that I was riding in with who pointed it out. He said, Andy, look at the towers. And on that particular morning, I looked, and encircling both roof lines of the towers was the blackest cloud I have ever seen in my life.
Really?
And I looked at it, and it looked amazing to me. And I was like, wow, look at that. Somebody should get a picture of that. I've never seen anything like that.
Right.
And then it wasn't until much later when we were going about 120 miles an hour in the opposite direction where Mikey said to me, he goes, Andy, remember the black cloud?
Yeah.
And I thought of that.
Wow.
But that morning I was right across the street, and I was working by a window when the first plane hit. So I actually did see the first plane.
Oh my goodness, now you're in construction, right, Andy?
Correct. So I was working on the interior construction.
Okay.
And I was working by a window on the header. And I just saw this huge, massive object interfere my field of vision.
Wow.
Something that obviously didn't belong. And then for a brief second it disappeared, and then that massive explosion.
Wow.
And you could feel the impact from across the street. And even the heat from the fire you could feel against the window of the building.
Oh my goodness.
And I don't know if it was the street kid in me, because, you know, I'm a Brooklyn kid, and I've been living, you know, by my wits my whole life. But something told me something really bad is happening. And I'm responsible for my construction crew. I was the foreman on the job at the time.
Okay.
And I just immediately threw the tools down. I said, everybody, get down, wrap up the tools, we're getting out of here.
Wow.
And we had to fight our way past security because they weren't letting people out of the buildings. And at that moment, I realized I had one guy in Tower 1.
Oh my goodness.
So when we got downstairs, I turned around, I looked at the guys, and I said, listen, Pablo's upstairs. He's on the 38th floor. He's a very docile sort of fella. If someone tells him to sit there, he's going to sit there and not move. I said, I got to go up and get him. I sent him over there. And I'm not going to my maker with that on my soul.
Right.
So I said, I need a volunteer. Because if I get hurt going up those stairs, I need someone to get him. Sure enough, the whole crew.
Oh my gosh, how many guys were in your crew?
It was about a dozen guys.
Wow.
And believe me, none of these guys,
Now, how did you
about
get
half
into
of the crew could make it up 38th place, but they all came in.
And how do they let you in the building now? I mean, everyone.
It was such pandemonium. People were running in and out like crazy.
Okay. So at that point, you're able to get out.
If you were working, if you were one of the white collar people working by your desk, if you came in early that day, you were told to stay there.
That's right.
You know, so we confronted security again when we went up and got Pablo and had to go through the whole process of getting him out. Again, we were confronted by security.
They didn't want to let you out of the building?
They didn't want us to let it get out.
Oh gosh. And this was Tower 1.
This is Tower 1. And people were coming up to me, you know, take us with you. And I said, sure. They're not gonna stop us all. Come, let's go. And then we made it downstairs, thank God.
Wow.
And you know, we looked up. I was kind of assessing the damage, but I knew at least the top of the building was coming down. I thought it was going to fall like a tree after you chop it, just because of the huge bite it took out of the side of the building. I never thought it was going to fall like it did.
Right.
But you know, there I was talking to one of the fire chief guys, one of the senior fellows, and I was explaining to him what the conditions were like. You know, very bad, smoky, people panicking like crazy. And I told him, I said, listen, that thing is coming down.
Right.
I go, I guarantee you, I've been working those buildings most of my life. That top is coming down. And he just said, okay, thanks for your help. And he walked right past me towards the building. I said, where are you going? He's like, to do my job.
Wow. At this point, were they evacuating people from the building, or was everyone still at their desks?
It was such confusion. It was like, you know, the fog of war.
Right.
People don't know, you know, communications were broken. Nothing was working properly. It was just pandemonium.
Wow.
And then the last thing in the world we needed, all of a sudden you hear the screeching in the sky.
Right.
You look
Yeah,
up,
the
you see this
second one.
plane. I thought it was maybe some reconnaissance, you know, someone just, you know, covering the area.
Right.
And it disappeared, and then a huge fireball out the other end of the tower too.
And so there you were with. Now you had by this point you had Pablo down. You had all of
Everybody's
your
down.
crew.
All of my guys were down,
Right.
and we were out of the building.
Right.
And but the jump is the glass showering down on top of you. It was unlike anything I've ever
Yeah.
seen.
Oh, it's awful. Now, when people think about ground, the reason, thank you for sharing that, I think it's important for people to know how involved you've been from the very beginning. You know, we talk about the mosque leader. When people talk about Ground Zero, some people define it just as Towers 1 and 2, but that's not true, right, Andy?
No, that's not true at all.
Could you give us an idea of the geography, if you will, of the area?
Sure, people always say, you know, the 16 acres was Ground Zero, and to a certain extent, yeah, that is true.
Right.
But if you talk about 7 World Trade, now 7 World Trade is located outside of that gated area.
Right. Okay.
You know, and even the building that they're proposing to build this mosque in, the Burlington Coat Factory,
Right.
that was struck with the landing gear of the first plane.
Well, that's what we wanted to talk about, because the argument was, and we can start talking about the mosque at this point too.
Sure.
But so at that point, though, when we were there, I mean, we were talking the other day about this on September 12th of '01. If anybody had said to us that, you know, the people who killed us that day would be back to build a mosque on the area where the attack occurred, we would have told them they were crazy, right?
Absurd.
Right? That we would have said, no, of course not. You know, they're our enemy. The people who killed us,
Right.
and we're united in that. And then what we've learned since then, though, is not only that they want to build this mosque, but also that the entire New York City political, you know, machine is behind it. Is that correct?
Very much so. You know, a lot of people don't know the war on terror is not just this operation going on overseas.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's not just in the caves of Afghanistan and the deserts of Iraq. It's right here. It's within our American life. You know, it's where our kids go to school.
Right.
It's where we work. It's where we shop.
Right.
You know, and worst of all, it's within our legislative bodies.
Right.
And right now, they have infiltrated the very heart of the Conservative Party. People like Grover Norquist of the Conservative Party
and he heads up
Suhail Khan. These are two with characters with some very radical, fundamental connections that just need to be looked into.
Wow. Now, they're the ones who run CPAC, right? That's the conservative
That's right.
conference. And they're not conservative in this
Well,
realm.
they're very much the rhino.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Well, so this is all interesting. Let's get back to the actual Ground Zero and that day, and then here, you know, we know it's a footprint. We're talking about the Burlington Coat Factory, right? And that's 51 Park is the address.
Correct.
Right.
4551 Park.
4551 Park, and that is was being used for prayer, right? From
They've been praying there since before 9/11, and they've been praying there up until today.
right.
No one has
Okay.
ever stopped them from worshiping.
Right. Now the building looks like that. You were telling us it has a mark on it, correct? That it's
That's true.
not safe.
The fire department condemned the building. And even a fireman, a professional,
Right.
is told he is not to enter that building unless it is to save a life. And that icon is still on the building to this
That's
day.
what I thought. You showed us that photograph. So people are praying in there. They're walking in and out all day, and
Right.
even the FDNY won't go in unless someone's life is at risk. So what does that say? I mean, doesn't sound like a safe building at all.
Well, it's not a safe building. And not only that, the other two buildings on either side of it are connected to it. See, when that landing gear came crashing through, now you're talking about 1,500 pounds of equipment coming at about 500 miles an hour
Wow.
through the roof of a building and penetrating 3 of the landings. That's like a bomb going off.
Oh my gosh.
You know?
Wow.
And all of the repairs that were done, and I researched this, all the repairs that were done on the building were done illegally. There was no work permits, nothing was approved. You need to get engineering
Absolutely.
clearance, you need to get architectural plans drawn up, then you need the building department to come down and do a full-scale inspection
Right.
before you even have a temporary certificate of occupancy to start the work. And they They
none of that was
leapfrogged
done.
all of this.
Wow. So they violated all of those laws that we know are so strictly enforced in New York, right? I mean, you can't open up
If you
anything.
went to build a deck on your house, what would happen?
Oh, they would make you take it down, right?
If you didn't get your proper
Right?
permits, you could be done with the thing and they'll make you take the whole thing apart.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
So here they are. Okay, so the building is not safe. The FDNY has marked it. They're praying there anyway. And we, God bless them for people for praying, but that doesn't sound like it's a safe situation.
No.
And then they talk about, so they had repairs done, but nothing to code, no plans filed, no work
Correct.
permits. And now they want to build this giant, what they call a victory mosque, right? And that's
They want to level the building that's there now.
Okay.
And put up this 16-story mosque.
mosque.
Now, they call it a cultural center, a community
Right.
center. According to Islamic law, if men pray there in that area, it is by their law designated a mosque, regardless how many basketball courts, how many ping pong tables,
Right.
and how many other activities take place there. If men are praying there, it's a mosque.
Okay, so they announced, when did they announce they wanted to build this? Do you remember, Andy?
It was about a year ago, as a matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, so it was
Yeah, about a year anniversary.
Okay, and I was shocked,
Yeah.
right, to learn about it. Did you
Stunned.
did you know anything about it? Did you hear any
Heard
gossip?
nothing.
Nothing.
Heard nothing. The first I heard about it, I believe it was Pam Geller that
Yes.
made the biggest noise
Right.
about it. You know, and Pam does a
From
lot.
Atlas Shrugged, right?
Correct. She does a lot of good work
Yes.
in that respect.
Right.
And I said to myself, wait, this just won't happen. You know, our
Right.
political hierarchy will come in here and cut the head off this thing and we'll be done with it.
Right, right.
Turns out the opposite happened. The political elite were lining up to support this thing. And this guy, Sharif Al-Gamal, the
He
realtor.
was the imam for the...
No, he's the
developer.
He's the right,
Okay.
correct. He teamed up with Iman Rauf, and
Okay.
together
Okay.
they got all their political elite all lined up like ducks, you know, and they marshaled this incredible amount of ruling class support.
Right.
Even though the will of the people was the complete opposite. You know, you're talking 70-30 against this project.
Right.
But meanwhile, the community board, the Landmarks Commission,
Right.
were just pushing it through. And of course, the media was painting everyone against it as a bigot
Right.
or a racist.
Right.
The worst thing
Right.
you can call somebody today.
Right.
So I thought that was offensive.
Absolutely. So, you know, it's just mind-boggling that they would come in here, and so a little over a year ago this started, and I think you had organized a march, which we'll talk about when we get back in our next segment. Thank you. So we'll do as well talk.
Okay.
About that. Yeah, thanks.
That was good.
That was very good. Thank
Feel all right?
you. Yeah.
With all the excitement happening with the Tea Party, it may be a little hard to separate fact from fiction. Find out the truth for yourself. Visit the New Jersey Tea Party Coalition's website at www.njteapartycoalition.org. You may find a common voice to your concerns on how our government is functioning and discover a means to help restore our nation based on the proven principles of our Constitution.
Welcome back. You're watching Tea Time, New Jersey Tea Party Coalition's weekly public affairs program. We're picking up our conversation with Andy Sullivan, where we left off. Andy's joined us this evening. Andy is with bluecollar.com.
Blue Collar Corner.
BlueCollarCorner.com, thank you, and where you can read about his 9/11 awareness tour. And we were talking about the mosque at Ground Zero, and we can just, Andy, I know you've got your finger on the pulse. What's happening now with that mosque?
Well, right now, for all intents and purposes, it's a dead project. I mean, as a matter of fact, he's doing work on the building right now. He's actually bringing the building up to code as we speak.
Is it the developer, Gamal?
Yeah,
Okay.
Sharif Al-Gamal
Okay.
from Soho Realty.
Okay.
He's the developer. He's starting to get the building up to code. Now, if I was knocking down a building, I would not be bringing it up to code.
Interesting.
You
Okay,
know?
great.
It makes no sense. And even though he says the project is still very much alive, what I think they're just going to renovate the place and just leave the shell as is and just maybe cosmetically fix up the interior.
Okay.
And to just keep it as it is.
Okay.
Which I really don't have a problem
Right,
with.
right,
You know?
right.
So
Well, that would be great. if
Yeah,
that
you
was
know,
the case.
instead of this gigantic spear shooting up into the sky, looming down at ground zero.
Right.
I don't know.
So maybe they heard our voices, right?
Yeah.
You would organize one of those marches, and we were there.
That's true. When I got the
right?
construction workers together to do my 9/11 hard hat pledge, we called it.
Right.
It was the guys getting together and just saying, we will not work on that building at that location.
So,
And before you know it, it was like everything stopped right in its tracks.
see, and so people say, you can't, one person doesn't make a difference, but in this case, I think, Auntie, it really did.
And not only
know?
that, I don't think the media has been giving us our credit, because this is a victory for the people.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, this is where the will of the people came into play, and we fought City Hall, and we won.
Absolutely.
And believe me, our very powerful, very rich mayor does not like that.
Which is interesting. So, that's a great segue into, we talked about a little bit about Sharia, because people think, well, it's Tea Party, why would you be, interested in talking about the mosque? But really one of the reasons is because Sharia is being introduced into American society, right?
Yeah, a lot of people calling it a great, gigantic Trojan horse.
It is, and for those folks who don't know what Sharia is, it's their law, right?
It's an Islamic law, correct.
Right, and I think it's called, their Islamic meaning is the way, meaning, so it's
The path to water.
Right, is that what it is?
Yeah,
okay.
the path to water.
So it really embodies every single aspect of a Muslim's life, from politics to religion to...
From the second you open up your eye till you put that head down to your pillow at night.
Interesting.
It regulates your
Right.
whole entire existence.
Right, that and the Hadith, so it's all spelled out in those two books, right?
Three books, the Quran, the Sunnah, and the Hadiths.
Oh, the Sunnah, I didn't know about that one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've gotten an Irish Catholic guy. You've got it all.
I'm just some dumb construction guy.
Oh, no, this is great. Okay, the 3 books. So when you're looking at this, obviously we won then. If he's just bringing his building up to code, that is awesome. So that's big news.
I don't want to put up the
Right.
mission accomplished banner,
Right.
But it is a great sign.
Right.
But at any time, Saudi Arabia could come in with a big treasure chest full of money.
Right, so we have to
and
keep our eye
change
on
the whole
it.
game. So we got to maintain this.
Absolutely, absolutely. But the other piece of this is when we talked about Mayor Bloomberg being heavily involved in pushing this forward. One of the, we thought, well, why on earth would he ever want to,
Why would he support such an insultful, hurtful project?
Exactly, and insult the families of the 9/11 victims and bring this to New York. But then Mayor Bloomberg is doing some interesting things on the other side, right, of his business interests.
Well, as we were talking about Sharia, he just started his Sharia Islamic financial platform. And Sharia financing is going to be the next big thing in finance. It is supposed to completely dominate the world.
Right.
Wow. They don't charge interest.
Right.
They don't deal with pornography or alcohol or pork or risky investments, which we paid for very dearly.
Yes.
And the banks themselves stay within the community and reinvest within the community. Now, on the surface, these all sound like very wonderful things. Right? Except for the one part where they talk about charities, or what they call zakat. And zakat is when they take their monies and they start funneling it to certain groups. Where are those groups? Where are they using that financing?
Right.
And a lot of people say it's going to these very radical front groups.
Right.
Very much like the Holy Foundation, the Holy Land Foundation.
Right.
And that's what we're afraid of.
Sure. So it's it's against the Constitution, first of all. It violates Sharia.
When you introduce Sharia into the American way of life, I feel it's a complete affront on our Constitution.
Absolutely.
Everything Sharia embodies is counter to our Constitution, without a doubt.
And two, because people don't realize this, but in the Muslim faith, according to Sharia law, if there's 2 people walking down the street, one's a Muslim and one is not, the person who's not the Muslim has to step aside. And that's really symbolic. They believe that Islam is here and the rest of us are down here.
That's correct.
Right? There is no equality.
No.
Right?
Not in it from an interfaith. No. Negative.
No. And they call us people of the book, the Catholics and Jewish people.
We're called demis. like sub-creatures, sub-citizens.
Yeah. So, and there's
we have to pay a tax so they'll tolerate us.
Right, and the tax keeps going up if you want to practice your religion.
That's right.
That's right. So yeah, so it's antithetical to the United States Constitution and to what we really believe. So that's why
it's freedom.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Tea Party. So what did you think about the Bin Laden's capture and assassination?
The first reaction was complete elation.
Right.
I mean, was I jumping around like some maniac, you know,
right.
up and down, an idiot in my underwear in my house? Yes, I was.
Yeah.
I'm guilty.
Right.
But you know what? After a few days go by and the details start to come out, not only do they come out, they start to keep on changing and
right.
metamorphosizing into something completely different than what we were originally told by our president.
I know, it was really odd, wasn't it? At first he was, his wife was standing in front of him and he used her as a human shield, right?
And then he was armed, then he wasn't armed. And he was in bed, and he was standing
dead.
behind a door. I couldn't keep up with all of the different stories.
I know. So, I mean, you give our armed services such credit, you know, and this is their operation.
How do you not love those guys?
Right.
How do you not love? We are nothing without our military.
Right.
I mean, God bless those guys. I want to hug and I want to renovate their house.
Right.
You know, I mean, those guys are the best.
Absolutely. No, they're great. But, you know, someone was saying that it's really indicative of the reason why the details were all varying and they were changing is because the White House wanted to take credit. And under normal procedure, you would have someone from the military who would be giving the details and briefing the reporters and the American people, and that didn't happen this time,
no,
right?
Not at all.
So that could explain why, you know...
Well, you know, our president was suffering some bad numbers due to a very soft and declining economy, skyrocketing gas prices, and a past foreign policy that just shows him as a very indecisive, dithering, sort of spineless creature. So this was his, or he thought, his coming out party, where he's this great, decisive leader who knew the right call. And, you know, do I have to, you know, I'm tired of people calling it a gutsy call, you know.
Right.
It was the call. You're the president.
Right.
You know, you took that job.
Right.
You're supposed to make calls like this.
Right.
You know? And it was our military that executed the dirty work. So
yeah. So it's really interesting to see. So, you know, when we look back at, you know, Sharia and the compliance, people don't realize that this is integrated. We can talk a little bit about how it's integrated into the top echelons of our government, that we have imams, right, who are giving guidance to our government, to our military on Sharia.
Our State Department. Our State Department has become like this puppet to these Islamic leaders.
Right.
I mean, we're sending these guys around the Arab world on our dime, and they're telling us how to behave with Muslims. Just like Obama actually consulted, before the operation went down, he consulted with imams on what to do with the body and with the most delicate way possible how to perform the burial rites.
Yeah, what did you think about that?
I got a problem with that.
Yeah,
I got a serious problem with that because I got people I loved that were incinerated on that day, and they didn't have that option to have their burial rites carried out. You know, and as far as photos, I want to see the photos.
Right.
Okay?
But do you think that that's, you know, there's such mistrust now with the government? You know, you're hearing so many people, mainstream people, are saying, you know, I really want to see that photo.
Yeah.
Right?
I got no problem looking at a photo of that. Hey, if I could see Snooki in a hot tub, I could see a picture of Bin Laden with his head blown apart.
I know, and it's our choice. If you want to see it, you can, and if you don't, then you don't have to look, right? Yeah, absolutely. But one of the things that I've been reading about it was interesting. Did you see the photograph that they showed of the war room, so to speak, with the whole cabinet there, supposedly watching the screen, what was going on? Do you know the background on that, right?
Well, tell me.
Okay. Yeah. Hillary had her hand over her mouth.
Right.
Well, after Leon Panetta, and we were all led to believe that they were watching the operation live, and you could see the president was in his golf outfit with a windbreaker, Air Force windbreaker on. So we were led to believe that that was the live operation they were watching. Well, Leon Panetta came out a day later and said, no, the cameras weren't working. There was absolutely no video.
I can't believe that.
Yeah, and then Hillary said, well, she was she had a sneezing because she has allergies. Yeah, so that's why she covered her mouth.
She was allergic to gunfire.
Yeah, and then someone else said they actually took Obama off the golf course. That's why he was in his golf attire. And this happened, and he didn't sign off on it.
Exactly.
So that's the other, whether or not we'll ever know if that's the case.
Will we ever know the real story?
Right, absolutely.
But listen, he's off. As long as he's off the face of the earth, a great evil has been extinguished. But it doesn't. This is not closure. I'm tired of people talking about closure. This is the first step in a long, long wrongs that need to be righted.
Absolutely. In fact, you're heading down. You can tell us a little about your trip down to Tennessee, right?
Yeah, in Tennessee, in Murfreesboro.
Yeah.
They're trying to combat this 53,000 square foot Islamic cultural center, basically a mosque.
53,000 square feet. Now, how many Muslims are there in?
There's under a couple of hundred families there. Meanwhile, they managed to get several $100,000 in financing. And of these Islamic families, they're all middle-class people. You know, they own like coffee shops, stationaries. So where's all this funding coming from?
Right, and where are the congregants? I mean, why would they?
Where are all these worshipers coming from?
Right.
You know, people fear that they're setting up this massive footprint in Murfreesboro to actually draw a huge Islamic population to the area.
Wow, and you said also, you were telling me in the break that Alaska has a.
Oh yeah, they're finding a mosque in Alaska right now.
Wow, and do you know what an area it is? Is it?
Oh, I don't know the details on that
okay.
one, but I did get word from you know, the coalitions that I work with.
Right. So and people don't realize the financing for these mosques, right? Comes from.
It's done very slickly. You know, they hide behind the whole freedom of religion thing, and they also hide away from the IRS, and then they hide because of the authorities. You can't investigate where a church or where a temple does with their funding, where it comes from, where it goes.
Right.
You know, so they're smart enough to know, you know, how to utilize the system against us.
Wow, it's interesting. So you're heading down there, and that's a part of your tour, your 9/11 awareness tour?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And I'll be in Dearborn, Michigan, which they say is going to be the first site of our first site of our no-go zone, meaning where Islam rules, which is frightening.
Wow, oh my goodness, so much. You'll have to come back and tell us about it.
I'd love to, Laura.
Thank you very much, but you can find Andy on bluecollarcorner.com. And we're so glad you joined us today. This has been Tea Time, New Jersey Tea Party Coalition's weekly public affairs program. And just take a look on the website under njtpartycoalition.org for more information about us. And we'll see you next time.